Johnny Sig and Kevin Perry back to review an instant classic. Fury wins an epic third fight against Deontay Wilder. One of the best heavyweight fights and one of the best fights you probably have seen all year long. Kevin, let's hit it, bro.
Unbelievable! You want to throw sometime? Bang! Oh, my God! Okay, Chip. 7 rounds to 2.
What's good today, Kevin? How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Definitely enjoyed what I would consider fight that's going to go down in history as one of the epic heavyweight battles of all time. Really exceeded everybody's expectations, considering, the last fight, Fury was just all over him and just kind of beat him down. And this time, I think kind of like we talked about in the last podcast, my assessment was Deontay Wilder just had to come out guns blazing, and that's exactly what he did. And he really made he definitely gained the whole wide world's respect with that performance. He came out guns blazing. He had Tyson Fury on the canvas a couple of times. And what was interesting too was it almost looked like in the third round that Wilder was going to get knocked out. And then the next round, he came back and put Fury on the canvas twice. And this was just an ebb and flow fight. Fury showed the heart of a champion. Deontay Wilder showed the heart of a champion. And wow, what a fight.
Amazing fight. And the first round, Wilder looked amazing in terms of his jab trajectory was excellent. He was jabbing to the chest. He was jabbing to the stomach. He was jabbing to the face, trying to aim for the throat even. And he looked really good. He looked like he had a great game plan. And at the end of the first round, Kev, I don't know if you noticed this, that Fury caught Wilder with a big, strong right hand to end that first round. So I think that in some ways, this was kind of the setup to the beginning of the end. Did you see that right hand land?
Right hand from
Fury going on Wilder.
Yeah, I did, but there was so much going on in the fight just in general. I mean, a lot of hard blows that were landing, and this definitely was not a boxing match.
No,
by any stretch of the imagination. No. I mean, this was just an old school slugfest. This kind of reminded me of, I guess you could say,
Bo Holyfield 3 I had.
Well, I don't want to say it's a poor man's version of Ron Lyle and George Foreman.
Oh,
but it was kind of a little bit similar to that. Maybe not. I don't know if there was as many. There was 5 knockdowns in this fight, but probably this fight was a little bit more one-sided than that fight. That fight probably had a little bit more ebb and flow because Fury definitely was winning most of the rounds, but Deontay Wilder was in this fight the whole time. I mean, he was dangerous at every second, and Tyson Fury just used kind of similar to what I thought he was going to do. He was just going to put his weight on him. He was going to make sure to keep himself out of harm's way by being in, tying him up in clinches and putting him in headlocks and just kind of wearing him down that way. I thought it was very effective when he did that. There was just one point, I think it was the 4th round, when Tyson Fury kind of made a slight mistake. He kind of he moved forward with his head, and Wilder picked up on that he was trying to clinch and grab a lot and wear him down, and Deontay Wilder landed that right hand, right on the button. And you kind of saw it was like a delayed reaction knockdown.
Yes, it was.
That's what was so interesting about it. He was so stunned that he got hit, and then he went down about 2-3 seconds later, almost like you'd see when somebody gets hit with a body shot. And then
exactly.
And then and Wilder went for broke. I mean, he tried to get the knockout, but Fury has one hell of a chin. I mean, I really and Wilder has a hell of a chin too.
Both guys.
Yeah.
Both guys. So I'm glad you brought that point up about the delayed reaction and all that kind of stuff, and then Wilder going for it. Do we think that he, load watch right here, shot his load, Wilder, in the 4th round? Because after the 4th round, which was a great round, which I want to unpack in a moment, especially coming back from being knocked down clearly in the third round. Wilder comes back in the fourth round, and he's going after Tyson Fury. Do you think it's a case of like maybe fatigue and mental fatigue? Because now he's dropped Fury a total of 4 times in 3 fights.
Yeah,
right.
And he can't get him out of there.
So I don't know if you noticed this. After the fourth round, Wilder walks back to the corner with like his head kind of down, like disappointment, mental and physical fatigue.
Yeah.
And then after this,
I think one thing too, you could kind of notice if you go to the corners, Wilder shows a lot more emotion. You can kind of see where he's at in the fight based on where like how he looks in the corner. And Tyson Fury is a lot more composed. Yeah, he definitely has a poker face.
Like, dude, when he gets dropped, Tyson Fury, even though you know he was hurt, because those 2 knockdowns in the fourth round were tough. They were big explosive shots.
Yeah, and he's such a big man. Yeah, he's such a big man too that when he falls to the canvas, I mean, it's difficult for a guy who's 280 pounds to pick himself off the canvas within 10 seconds. Especially after getting hit by Deontay Wilder.
Folks that are listening, think about if you're 280 pounds and you're hammered and drunk at the club and fall down. Try to pick yourself up, because that's exactly what happens when you get a knockdown or get knocked down. Again, going back to the poker face of Fury, like he sells it very well. Like notice when he got up, he looked at the referee right in their eyes directly. And also put his hands right up, even though you know he was hurt. There's no way in hell he wasn't hurt. But he just has this. I've never seen a fighter like him. I got to be honest, man. You know, he's a different type of animal. He's 6'9". He's agile. He's got heart. He's got a chin. He's got will. You know, he does almost exactly what he says he's going to do in almost every fight he fights. Like, I got to say, man, we got a great heavyweight champ and a definite Hall of Famer. Like, this guy is something special.
Yeah, and it's I just think just as far as this was a great night of boxing.
Hell yeah.
I thought it got a lot of attention from just, you know, it was buzzing on social media. I'm pretty sure it was trending like #1 or somewhere around there. A lot of celebrities were talking about it. I think it's one thing with boxing is when you put 2 fighters that have like contrasting styles together, that's what boxing is all about. That's when you get, you know, good fights, you know, not when you put, you know, one good fighter against a C fighter and you want to see drama, you want to see action, you want to see ebb and flow. This fight kind of had everything, and then you also had the bad blood before the fight. You know, and there was controversy with the gloves before the fight and all this stuff. So it definitely, like, the buildup, this was one of those fights where the fight exceeded the buildup. And that was
hell yeah.
Because I remember, you know, Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather, the buildup to that, and then the actual product that we got just didn't deliver. So at least in this case, and plus, you know, when it's heavyweight boxing, that's kind of the top of the food chain. And, you know, anybody's lights can go out at any time. And especially, you know, the reputation that Deontay Wilder has. I mean, he's lived up to that reputation. The only difference is Tyson Fury was able to get up from the shots. I don't think any other fighter in the heavyweight division could absorb the kind of shots that Tyson Fury was taking from Wilder.
That's why I said what I said about the fourth round. I could see, like, you know, Wilder was very discouraged, man. Like, you could tell, like, he's like, dang, man, what do I got to do to take this guy out? You know, 3 fights, 4 knockdowns, you know, and he got up like the Undertaker in the first match. You know, the second one was not really competitive at all. This one, extremely competitive. But then after that fourth round, it was not competitive. Like, I saw Deontay Wilder making significant bad mistakes against Tyson Fury. Tyson was knocking him around pillar to post. If you notice, there's a pattern here that goes on for multiple rounds where Deontay Wilder is constantly moving to Wilder's left side and Fury's right side. One side of the ring, other side of the ring, corner to corner to corner to corner. And so it goes on. And that was like a sign of kind of like, again, mental fatigue and physical fatigue. And then Tyson Fury was really having his way. There was one point at one time, I think that my shirt says, strike first, strike hard, no mercy. I tell you what, that Fury showed some mercy because I think he could have stopped them even earlier, I believe in the 10th round. But then he was like, all right, this man keeps taking it. The corner's going to send him out there, which I found very questionable after the 10th round.
Just to add there, I think part of that too was, Tyson Fury had been hurt a few times when trying to go for the knockout earlier in the fight.
Okay, that's a great point.
Yeah,
great point.
I think he was conscious that he was probably ahead on the scorecards, and would just want to stick to the game plan and not get greedy. But I think in that 11th round, I think he realized that this guy was ready to go.
Out. It was out. Did you see his eyes? His eyes were just Deontay Wilder's eyes.
Those were clubbing shots that that last punch. I mean, that was pretty brutal. I mean, especially a big guy like that, just hammering on you, and eventually
it's so nasty. Yeah, he fights.
Yeah,
nasty, look, man. I mean, he done him bad, bro.
Yeah, there was no need for a count there, and
no.
And I have to, I was very critical of Russell Mora, the referee before the fight, but I think he did a pretty good job.
Did a excellent job.
Yeah, I think especially with two big guys like that, it's very difficult to kind of keep control of what's going on, especially a big guy like Tyson Fury. He wasn't breaking him immediately. He would let him fight a little bit in the clinch, and he was breaking at the proper time. So kudos to him. He definitely impressed me with his performance. He wasn't over officiating. He was coming in at the right time. So I think generally the fight was, I wouldn't say it was a clean fight, but
it's a fight.
But yeah, it's a fight. Exactly.
Yeah, it was a fight. And speaking about the clinch, notice Tyson Fury did these nice uppercuts on the inside, man. And just like every once in a while, like, here we go. This is a fight. So if you notice that Fury's hair, now this is like a very detailed point, was grown out just enough. He's got a shaved head, but grown out just enough to where he could rub his hair against Deontay Wilder's face. Not making any excuses for my boy Deontay, but here's what happens is that on the inside, if you watch it very closely, and I've only seen the fight once, but I picked up on this observation that Fury, it's a fight. You got to this guy knows how to handle people on the inside extremely well. Use weight, use shoulders, use pressure, use his head, but not a headbutt, but he just rubs his face on it. Did you catch that, Kev?
No, I didn't catch that, but I know he was kind of doing some, kind of dirty boxing in the clinches.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
But see, what Tyson Fury does is he makes sure he puts his head in a position where you can't hit him clean in the clinch. And he makes sure that, his hand positioning and everything is in the proper spot to get, those uppercuts off and whatnot. And Deontay Wilder that's really what the fight came down to, was those times when they were in the clinch. Fury was getting his punches off, and Wilder wasn't really able to do a whole lot. He was more trying to get out of the clinch and then throw one of those sneaky right hands that he likes to throw. But Fury was making sure he just kind of had him wrapped up like an octopus, and then once the referee would get there, then he'd kind of reset and then go back to the jab and fight at a range that was comfortable for him. And then Wilder basically was just slinging right hands. I mean, he was just slinging them all night long. But he did land quite a few. And basically, this was the fight where you were always on the edge of your seat, because at any moment, Tyson Fury could possibly get dropped or knocked out. And that was the intrigue. And then the other side of the fight was, how much of this punishment can Wilder keep taking to try to land a big shot to end the fight?
Absolutely. And you mentioned something about positioning and range, and that's the problem that Wilder had. He could not fight on the inside. He never could fight on the outside. He couldn't find the mid-range. You know, like that was the problem. He had no proper positioning to face, Fury, and Fury had all the answers. And whenever Wilder kind of got like in some kind of groove of some sort, if you will say that, it went out the window. And they had a game plan. It looked like in round one, Wilder looked really good. But what did Mike Tyson say? Everyone has a game plan until they get hit in the face.
Yeah.
At the end of the first round, at the very last second, I'll bookend exactly my point that I made earlier, is that when Wilder gets hit by Fury in the first round, that mucked him up, bro, like big time. And there was a change of momentum. And the fourth round, I'm not going to say it was lucky for Wilder because he's a big, strong puncher, but he needed that momentum swing, and then he never used that momentum swing after the fourth round. Just was not able to do it.
Yeah, I think it was just more of a matter of Tyson Fury getting a little bit too comfortable in there, and he made a mistake, and Wilder, dialed in that right hand and he landed it.
So Wilder went back. Sorry,
I just
Wilder
have a
went
question
back
for you, John. So there was all this stuff people were making about Malik Scott and what he was going to bring to the table as far as being Wilder's trainer in this fight. Did you see any wrinkles that maybe his new trainer brought to the game, or you just think that Wilder came a little bit more determined to try to take Tyson Fury's head off this time?
This is a great question. Exactly where I was going. That's why you're my brother. What happened was I think that they had something that really was working in the first round, and then Wilder just became Wilder, man. Like you saw the change. Like he started to get more and more less of the game plan, because the jab game plan was excellent. That's the one time he did have proper positioning. Is the first round. He had a great jab. He looked like he had Fury.
And he was
upset.
actually he was throwing that jab to the body.
Excellent.
He was throwing some body shot hooks and stuff. He seemed like he was kind of trying to box. And then once he got hit a couple times,
it all went out the window.
He just reverted back to, forget boxing. I'm just going to try to knock this guy out.
And that's, I think, exactly.
But it was effective. It was somewhat effective.
Because, you know what? I wish that Wilder did a hybrid of what he did in the first round and then what he usually does and find a middle ground. And like I said about positioning, finding a middle ground. Like he could not find that middle ground. Now, I thought he looked fantastic. I think Malik Scott and him are a great team. I don't know if I want to see, and I know this is crazy, guys that are listening. I know that Deontay Wilder's only lost 2 fights and has 1 draw and a lot of knockouts and a lot of wins. The type of beating he took last night at heavyweight ranks and the way he looked, again, I'm going to go back to his eyes, his physical presence was not that of someone that I really want to see fight anytime soon. I think there needs to be a medical suspension. I think people really got to take a hard core examination.
Well, I think naturally you won't see him in the ring for at least another 9 months.
I say a year.
But I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't think any other opponent could inflict that type of punishment to Deontay Wilder. I mean, just the size and the mass of Tyson Fury is just it's tough to handle for anybody. I think some of these other heavyweights, they just don't, and they don't have the ability to impose their will on somebody like Deontay Wilder. Like, for example, somebody like Alexander Usyk, who's a great boxer. You can fight that guy, but I don't think he's going to be able to do the type of damage somebody like a Tyson Fury would, or some of these other heavyweights. It's just amazing to me, a big guy that can fight at the kind of pace that Tyson Fury does. I mean, it's
unbelievable.
It's really an anomaly. So
it's unbelievable. Like he dodges punches. For someone that's 6'9", he'll get under shots. And this is where it's probably very frustrating. Again, mental fatigue for Wilder is that he'll throw a hook or a straight right hand, and Fury will get underneath that. Like the guy's 6'9", and he'll bend. He uses legs. I've never seen a fighter like this before, and this is not just me being hyped about last night and like everything else and the hype train. There's no hype train here. Fury is a train. He just keeps coming after you. He fights every moment, every second of the fight. He doesn't stop, whether it's inside, whether it's ducking and dodging. And And if you notice, he didn't play too much last night. He was very business. He didn't do clowning. He didn't lick blood. He didn't do anything like that. He was very, very focused. His eyes the entire time was on his prize, and he kept pressing and pressing and pressing. And, pressure breaks pipes. And Deontay Wilder, got broke last night, man. Fury is a bad, bad man. One of the most unique and charismatic and colorful fighters I've ever witnessed, Kevin. I have to say that.
Yeah, this was I guess this got to go in like probably the top 10 of best heavyweight fights in history. Would you say?
This was a hell of a fight. Yep.
Think this makes the top 10 probably? Just off the top of your head?
Yeah, it's definitely up there with the ranks of like say Bo Holyfield 1, even Bo Holyfield 3. Mike Tyson,
Holyfield and John Ruiz.
Not so much. But I mentioned Holyfield a lot because he happened to do a lot of great heavyweight fights. You mentioned Ron Lyle and George Foreman. I think that might be the best. Ali Frazier 3.
I think Ali Frazier 3 is probably the best one.
That should be X-rated, bro. That is bad, bro. That is
Marciano and Walcott was a pretty good one too.
That was excellent. Yeah. There were a lot of bombs exchanged, and so the point I'm making is that we don't want to see fighters after fights like this, like Deontay.
Yeah, we don't want to see him come back right away. I think is
please don't come back.
But I don't think his career is over. After this fight, I think there's some interesting fights.
Joshua, maybe he could face Joshua.
I think Anthony Joshua. A good comeback fight would be Andy Ruiz.
Oh shit!
You can put him in with him. Even Robert Helenius, dude. So let's talk about the undercard real quick.
Let's go for it.
So Robert Helenius, veteran heavyweight, he pulled off an upset over Adam Kanaki in their last fight, and he knocked him out again this time. I believe it was they said it was a DQ, but it's kind of, there were several knockdowns and whatnot. He's a potential future opponent for Deontay Wilder to come back against, and that might be actually an interesting brawl. Also on the undercard, we had another heavyweight fight, two undefeated heavyweights, Frank Sanchez against Efe Igjaba. And it was kind of a stinker, but Frank Sanchez won most of the rounds. He scored a pretty clean knockdown, I believe, in round 7 or 8. And then there was a knockdown that I believe Igjaba scored, but, they said it was a slip. So it was kind of, Sanchez was kind of off balance, but he did get hit by a shot and went down. But they called it a slip. But Sanchez, a decent heavyweight, so that's somebody to look at potentially as an opponent or a potential future opponent for maybe Tyson Fury in the interim. Interesting, boxer, Cuban, not all that exciting, not a big puncher, but definitely somebody that could give you some, he could give you fits. He's definitely not the most exciting fighter in the world. So don't know if I want to see that fight, but he's somebody that's definitely in the picture, as a contender, moving from prospect to a contender. Interesting calling a 30-plus-year-old fighter a prospect, but that's where he's at.
Hey, a lot of heavyweights can actually blossom and have their prime.
Yeah,
in
that's
their early
true.
30s and mid 30s. So, again, you look at some great fighters from yesteryear. They've done that, and they've looked great. And we got Fury right now at 33 years old. I mean, he looks older, but in the ring, he don't look that old. And he's got a youthful personality. But I mean, did you ever at one point last night see Fury get fatigued? Really? I mean, he's just. Like you said before, you could see Wilder, like he showed fatigue. He didn't have that poker face, man. And that's why Fury kept going after him. Now I want to talk about the heavyweight division real quick too.
But before we talk about that, I just want to go over a couple of the other card bouts, just really briefly. We had Jared Anderson, upcoming heavyweight. He won by knockout. Also. Edgar Berlanga.
Mhm.
He had actually a very tough fight. Let me just look real quick, see who he who he was fighting last night. But I did get to see the Fox. They had the undercards on Fox Sports 1.
Mhm.
And Edgar Berlanga, he fought Marcelo Esteban Caceres. I believe Caceres, former world title challenger, against Billy Joe Saunders at 168 pounds. And from what I understand, he gave Saunders a pretty tough fight. And this fight was pretty close. Berlanga won by unanimous decision, but he got dropped, and he got dropped pretty hard. I believe in the 8th or 9th round. But the opponent, Caceres, his eye was completely swollen shut.
Ooh.
But this guy Berlanga, to me, I mean, I just don't think he's the real deal. I mean, he's got a lot of work to do. Gets hit too much. Doesn't seem confident in himself. If he's not able to land punches, he just kind of stalks his opponent. He doesn't use the jab enough. He's just basically, he's still kind of raw. He's a very raw prospect at this point. And I think they kind of need to maybe
more grooming.
Maybe slow him down a bit. But this was a good step up opponent for him to kind of see where he's at. He's got a lot to improve on, but he did win the fight. So if you're just knocking people out in the first round over and over, you're not going to learn much. So this was definitely a good learning experience for him. And he's going to improve. There's going to be a lot that they're going to go back to the gym and work on. So good. I wasn't impressed, but it was a good step up fight for him. Also, he had a big upset. Former 154-pound champion Julian Williams loses to Vladimir Hernandez. Hernandez is known for pretty much ending the career of Alfredo Angulo. So he was coming off that big victory. And Julian Williams, I only actually saw the second half of the fight, but from my understanding, Williams dominated the first half of the fight. I only saw the second half, and Williams just did not look good. I mean, he was getting kind of beat around the ring. He was doing a lot of holding. He looked like he was on his way out of the fight for the last 3 rounds. I mean, and the thing is, Hernandez is not a big puncher. So if Hernandez was able to do that kind of damage on Julian Williams, I'm really worried about the future of this guy's career. Is it possible that he needs to move up to 160 pounds? But he just looked completely deflated in the second half of the fight against a guy who's, a very tough Mexican fighter who comes forward and, the typical brawling kind of style, but just isn't a big, huge puncher, but a very durable guy. And I agreed with the judges that Hernandez won, but obviously I didn't see the first 5 or 6 rounds. But from what I saw, Hernandez was really just putting it on Williams. So that was definitely unexpected upset. So there's a couple of things you wanted to add, John. Continue.
Yeah, heavyweight division. Where does Fury go next? Okay, so Fury and Usyk sounds like a great fight. Now, could they make that happen? And does Usyk want to deal with that? And Usyk's a much smaller man, much smaller man than Tyson Fury, with limited experience in the heavyweight division. Now, Usyk did get a big win against Joshua. Fine, all well and good. But I mean, where do we go with this? For Tyson Fury, I think he's going to want to continue to fight for a little bit longer than most people think. Okay. And I think that the bottom line is that he'll try to get an Usyk and he'll dog him just like he dogs his opponents. And that's the fight that people want to see. I don't know if we want Joshua and Fury. I don't know if that's even a thing anymore. Maybe it'll make money, of course, but is that something we really want? But there are a lot of fights that are out there. The heavyweight division is pretty excellent. Like it's not a terrible division. Like there's people that could take anyone's, head off at any point in time. I mean, everyone's got power. Andy Ruiz has power. Deontay Wilder has power, and all these guys. they got the the way they could drop someone at any point in time, the neutralizer. We got someone joining the chat here. Hey, what's up? Yes, massive fights can be made. Kangaroo Jack. I hope you enjoyed the fight last night. I hope you and yours are well today. Kev, what are your thoughts for Fury moving forward?
Thoughts for Fury moving forward. Kind of hard to say. He's with Top Rank, so pretty much you got to assume that it's going to be a Top Rank fighter. The heavyweight on the card that was on the main undercard was Frank Sanchez. Mm-hmm. Not a big fight per se, but kind of a good stay busy opponent. Some of the other top heavyweights are more with PBC, from my understanding. And then there's also, Usyk and Joshua. Joshua is going to have that rematch. So that's the next fight that's going to happen. And then we'll see after that fight, if Joshua wins, the big fight that everybody's going to want to see is Joshua against Tyson Fury. Even if Joshua loses to Usyk, I think people still want to see Tyson Fury against Anthony Joshua, because regardless, it's still a good fight.
It makes money, and it is a good fight.
It makes money. It makes sense. If Usyk wins, obviously Tyson Fury, would love to have those other belts. More of a difficult fight to make, I guess you could say, because Usyk is, I believe he's with Matchroom, and it's not a huge pay-per-view fight because, Usyk is not a big star. So yeah, I don't know. It's just hard to say because this was it's such a big fight, and it's, it just happened yesterday. I think you just kind of have to look at, Top Rank just doesn't have a lot of heavyweights. So I think that's going to be pretty interesting to see who kind of pops up. What do you think, John?
Well, like I said, there's a lot of great heavyweight talent out there. Great in the fact that a lot of the top guys have significant power. Dillian White, even just Sora, man. These are dangerous guys. Like a lot of them, they've been around the block. They're tough. They're gritty. Anything can happen, So at the end of the day, the next opponent for Deontay Wilder should be just relaxing. That should be, getting better, recovering. And then for Fury, the sky's the limit. And there's so many people that may want to fight him or may not want to fight him because how dangerous he is. He's a tough assignment, no matter what. Because you got to know at the end of the day, right, that he'll get up off the mat and he'll find a way to look better after he does it. How the hell does that happen? Like every single time he goes down, right? He finds a way.
I think Kangaroo Jack is back. He had a question. I don't know what his question was.
Okay.
I think he was. I think he was on when we kind of got kicked out of the stream. We had some technical issues, but
no worries. But and then a lot of people don't want to face Fury, like I was saying. But a lot of people do, however, because they want that money, But you're gonna earn that money, You're gonna learn today because that's a very unique heavyweight that's agile, can take a shot, get off the mat, and look better. It like wakes his ass up. How? Like I would love to get an interview with Tyson Fury when things settle down, because I know everyone in the world is probably going after him. But I've been in contact with his management in the past, and they're very nice people. And I just would love to pick his brain about where this comes from, this intestinal fortitude. How? And then the agility and the athleticism.
Yeah.
Guys, this is my pound for pound best fighter on the planet, if you haven't recognized.
Who's the I think Kangaroo Jack wanted invite to the panel.
We'll bring him on next time. We're about to wrap it up, but we'll bring you on next time, Kangaroo, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. Next time we have a show, we'll give you a link. We'll definitely send you a link. Anything else you want to add, John?
No, just like I will. Boxing had a great night last night. The sports world had a great night last night. When boxing's at its best, it is the greatest sport, in my opinion, on planet Earth. Everyone all week long, not only in Vegas, on social media, everywhere, was buzzing about this fight. And last night, when the fight was over, man, everyone was talking about this bad boy. This was one hell of a fight, and this is what boxing really needed. It got an infusion last night, and it lit me up and made me realize again why so much I love this sport. Kev, what about you?
Just like I said before, I'm just happy we had a good night of boxing where there was no controversy. It was just everything about the whole night was positive. Deontay Wilder didn't make no excuses after losing. He came and just put up a valiant, effort that any boxing fan can respect. And it's just refreshing, all the news that came out after the fight was just positive, everything and it's definitely like a good look because we have a couple other big fights coming up in the next month or so, with Canelo and Caleb Plant, and then we have Terrence Crawford and Sean Porter. So hopefully those fights will, get some push and get some more attention from this one because definitely, boxing needs, the new fans to survive. It's a comment from Kangaroo Jack. He's there. He says, calling it now, Fury will retire undefeated and walk away champion. Nobody beats him. He's got too many. I don't understand.
Tools in the kit.
Oh, too many tools in the kit. It's definitely like a reasonable assessment. I think if he retired now, but if he retires now, he's leaving a lot of money, on the table. But I was reading something about him. I don't think he's necessarily fighting for money. He's a gypsy, so he doesn't live his life kind of that way in the sense where he needs a whole lot of money. But
there's no one like him, bro. There's no one like him
but he loves boxing. So
he saw him smiles last night against the ring.
I think there's 2 or 3 fights left for him, and I think one's Anthony Joshua. I think that's just it's got to happen. Joshua lost to Usyk, but it wasn't like he took a major beating. And there's things that Joshua can do to win the rematch. The same way when he rematched Andy Ruiz and he made some adjustments and he won that fight. I think he could beat Usyk in a rematch. He just has to approach the fight a little bit differently. And
but
then
notice what we're talking about, heavyweight boxing again.
Yeah. And then even though Tyson Fury is he's a linear champion, I don't know if you can necessarily call him the undisputed champion because Usyk has those other 3 belts. So it's just it's
well, Tyson Fury, in my opinion, is
just to answer Kangaroo Jack's question, I don't think I think he might retire undefeated, but I just don't think he's going to retire after this fight. So maybe I misinterpreted what his comment, because I was kind of thinking that he would the comment was saying that he's going to retire right now. I think the comment was just saying that nobody, beats him.
I think that you're right in the sense
that's a reasonable assessment.
That you have like an idea of Tyson Fury, taking 2 or 3 more fights, and it's very logical to suggest that Tyson Fury will, retire unbeaten. And if you really look at it, that one draw, I don't know, man. He should have probably won that fight. So technically, he could end his career being really considered unbeaten.
He definitely looks, difficult to beat, but
impossible.
So that being said, just before we go, just to end it on this little note, is there anybody upcoming in the heavyweight division to look at? I know this Jared Anderson guy seems to be a decent prospect. Is there anybody else out there coming up that you could see that could be a potential problem for Tyson Fury? Or
nah, not right now.
There's no solid heavyweight. What about that?
Joe Joyce? He's too slow.
Actually, you know what? Be honest with you, I think Joe Joyce is a great.
Nah.
No, I mean he's a great opponent for Tyson Fury.
Yeah, Tyson will kick his ass.
But at the same time, Joe Joyce, he's durable. He's got a good chin. He can punch, and
He's
it
too
might be
slow.
he's too slow, but it might be a good fight though, because Tyson Fury is not all that quick either. But you think it's an ugly fight, or I think it's Joe Joyce. One thing about him, he comes to fight. So
He does. I give him respect and no disrespect to Joe Joyce and his people and their handlers. He's a fighter. He gets in the ring, but I don't see that going good for him at all. Not at all.
yeah, but you know what? But you know what? At the same time, styles make fights. Like for example, so we use this as an example. We saw Usyk struggle with Derek Chisora, and then he beat Anthony Joshua. So that fight was a barometer where you looked at that and you're like, well, this guy can't beat Anthony Joshua, and then he went out and did it. So it's different styles. Deontay Wilder is pretty much a one-handed fighter. Joe Joyce is kind of more of a volume puncher. He can take a punch. He's strong. He's tall. He's big. That's actually a fight that interests me. I know it doesn't interest you, but excuse me.
I think it's all right. I mean, I'd watch it, of course.
It interests me because it's an all English fight, and also as far as potential opponents for Tyson Fury in the interim, there's really nobody out there except for maybe Dylan White. That's a potential fight. But Dylan White, he just got knocked out a couple fights ago against Povetkin. So, I mean, I don't really give him much of a chance.
That's my point about the heavyweight division nowadays. It's not about really talent. It's just about, these guys got explosive power. I mean, now Tyson Fury, he's got power, obviously, and because we've seen, dude, look at, Deontay Wilder's chin, going back to that last night. Like, that was amazing. But it's obvious that he has power because he could break that chin. He could break down the fortress. He could take down the castle and burn it down. And that's what he does. And so he's right up there in the power category nowadays. But the thing about with Fury is that he's got so much fucking talent, man. He's so talented. And it's like, he could play any game that you want to play in that ring, man. Any type of skill set, inside fighting, outside fighting, clinch fighting, dirty fighting, outside range, jab, power, talk shit in your ear, lick your blood. I mean, the guy, just knows how to fight. It's not boxing, it's fighting. And that's what he does. He's a fighter. And anyone in the heavyweight division's got to go in there prepared for war.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely not just a boxer or boxer puncher. He's one of the more dynamic fighters in boxing.
Amazing.
Amazing. Anything else you want to add, John, before we go? Or
no, I just want everyone to have a great day today, you and yours. Hopefully everyone's safe and happy, and we'll be back in a couple of days and preview some other great fights coming up.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and actually I look forward to watching the replay. I mean, it was
I'm checking it today too. I'm watching it today.
It's definitely good for a second viewing. So that being said, see you next time, and thanks for coming. Episode 25 of Kayonation Boxing Podcast.